About a year ago, Phreak made a comment on balancing jungle, and I'm going to play the clip and then we'll talk about how Riot should go about balancing roles because I think it tells us a lot about how Phreak and Riot think about balancing roles.
Some of the jungle changes going to go through. I know the role has a lot of impact in the game, but don't want it to be greatly nerfed. I mean, ultimately, like, the role does have to be greatly nerfed. Like, I think just, like, factually, the role has to be greatly nerfed. It is about 20%, so as far as, like, we can measure, it's about 20% stronger as a role than other roles. Like, if we literally nerfed, like, the overall power of jungle by 15%, that would be probably about appropriate and fair.
So, what's crazy about this clip is obviously it reveals this desire to make all of the roles in the game have an equal impact to each other. And I understand that obviously we know different roles have different levels of impact, but I actually think it could be desirable to have different roles have a different level of impact. For example, it's just not really the case that in any game or sport, all roles have to have the same impact as each other. It's more interesting in a lot of ways when there is a carry position that really is a carry position that actually gets to have an outsized impact on games because players who want to fulfill that role get to play that role and have a good time playing it. And people like myself who play support or whatever get to have our impact through helping those people be stronger. And that's essentially the problem is if you look at any other game, whether it's football or whatever, you're going to have a role that's many times more impactful than other roles, but it doesn't mean that people don't enjoy the game or that they don't enjoy playing the other roles in the game, because not everything is just about the effect that you can have on the win rate and the impact that you can have. A lot of times it's about making the game feel fun for the people who are playing it by giving roles a strong identity. And I think that trying to balance the game so that jungle and support and AD carry and all the roles have the exact same impact as each other isn't necessarily the right way to approach the game. In fact, I think that people would assume when they sign up for a role like AD carry that because it's a carry role, it's going to have at least the ability, if you're good, to have a very outsized impact on the outcome of the game. And now, obviously, this was a year ago, and so they did do some things to jungle, but jungle was perceived as the most impactful role in the game by far then. And then, of course, support was second. And really, that had less to do with the strength of, the champions or the items or anything like that, and really more to do with them just being able to move around the map and impact plays more than other people. In a game like in solo queue, when you can show up and have an influence on more fights, you're going to, if you're a good player, be able to have that outsized impact on the game. And so because of that, roles that can just move around more and have more flexibility, like jungle and support, are the roles that have the biggest impact on the game. Now, you can reduce that impact by, for example, making it more punishing in terms of missing XP for supports to roam, or making it more difficult for junglers to gank early by making camps take longer to take, or by making camps do more damage to junglers and things like that. So obviously there's things that they could do to make these roles have less of an impact, and they probably should, because jungle and support are actually the two most supportive roles in the game and should be having potentially a little bit of a lower impact, especially jungle, since jungle's moved all the way, well, really support too, all the way to this hyper impactful for role. And well, of course, you're still going to have the ability to move around the map and stuff like that. If you were to punish the items or something like that, like support, especially as a class, has a certain set of items that they build, and they're very overtuned for the cost, right? I think most people would agree. Support items are essentially overpowered to get more people to play support because it's the least played role. What Riot doesn't want to do with support is make support weaker and then less people want to play it. But regardless, I think that even as a support player, it just makes more sense for mid laners and AD carries especially, and even top laners to have more of an impact, more of an outsized role on the outcome of games. And that's kind of what you sign up for when you play support. And maybe, when they're measuring the role that the impact that an AD carry has on the game, it would probably be very difficult to remove the support's effect on getting that AD carry to that point or that position to be strong enough to have an impact in the first place. So I think that it would be hard statistically to measure the value that a support is able to provide. And so maybe it is the case that if AD carry was really impactful, even if you tuned back supports would be able to, also maybe have an outsized impact on the outcome of games by helping their AD carry get to that point where they're really strong. So essentially what we see here is that Riot is just trying to make sure that all of the roles are exactly the same power level and fair to climb with in solo queue. They don't want, too many junglers in challenger and people choosing a role to climb with because they think that it's going to have a bigger impact or something like that. But again, the real question should be, what's going to get more people interested in playing the game? And I will tell you, there's an awful lot of AD carry players who probably have quit the game or aren't that interested in the game or would be more interested in the game if there was a role that had more of a clear carry potential like that. A lot of people complain that there's not really a role that can 1v9 very easily. Of course, jungle, even I think today, a year later, still is that closest that you can get to that role. But in a lot of ways, that doesn't make sense for I think the identity as jungle, at least going back into the early days of the game. So obviously, I think that Riot should recognize that you can make a more fun game even if the roles aren't perfectly balanced with each other. It's more engaging to watch professional play that way if you're really rooting for a person to carry like that. It's more engaging to watch streams if somebody can have an outsized role and impact the game. And it's more rewarding for the people who are playing support or who are playing jungle who actually want to be a role player on a team to help the people who have the ability to impact the game do well and put them in a position to do well. And that's how you have your impact, is through those other people rather than through your own items and your own levels and champions being so strong. When I play support nowadays, I don't feel like my job is to get my AD carry fed so that they can carry the game for me 1v9. I feel like my job is to get my items and use my abilities well, because my abilities can impact a team fight just as much as a fed AD carry can if I use them well. So that's kind of the issue, right? Is back in the day, I felt like if I, do really well in lane, get my AD carry a bunch of farms safely, or I get them a bunch of kills, my AD carry is going to be able to 1v9 the game, and then I protect them during a team fight. Now it's like, it doesn't really matter what happens to my AD carry. I'm just going to roam all over the map to try to influence as many skirmishes as I can, to tilt the game in our favor in solo queue. And it's, even if my AD carry doesn't get fed, it's not the end of the world, because if anyone on my team gets fed, I can help them. And how I use my abilities in team fights is just more impactful than my AD carry anyways. So that's sort of the issue, I think, is that Riot is trying to create this equitable situation between the roles, when really what they should be doing is focusing on how to design a game that's more satisfying for the people who want to play carries and the people who want to support carries. So let me know if you guys agree or what you think about that. With that being said, good luck in solo queue and have a wonderful day.